And as if that were not enough, golden butterflies flitted around in the breeze. Life-size fish, ropes, hampers, baskets, bins, and even wood piles for burning were all fashioned in gold and silver and then soldered together. Such gardens, would you believe, graced all of the royal residences throughout the land. The others were disassembled before the treasure-lusting invaders could reach them. So carefully were these artifacts hidden that they have never been found. And regretfully, most of what is upon such that the invaders did lay their hands was melted down for shipment to Europe. So vanished an unbelievably precise metal technology. But the Incas were heirs to a much earlier culture. And, as we shall see, the evidence for an advanced knowledge of metallurgy in the remote past is irrefutable. The following examples are but representative, so wait for the surprises. Now, each of us has probably heard or read in Reader's Digest or seen on, something on television, some special or some odd piece of history like the History Network or the History Channel. But not all 969 of them. I have never heard of the pyramids over in China. That was a new one to me. In fact, most of the information contained in this book is new to me, which made me say to myself, why is this being suppressed? And it isn't Jonathan Gray here who is suppressing it. He's revealing that the Smithsonian Institution, the Chicago Museum of Natural History, the London Museum, the great institutions around the world are now, and will continue in the future to systematically hide and obfuscate these tremendous finds of archaeology. And remember, these have been found by the natural, normal, everyday garden variety archaeologists, the guys that are out here that are the mainstream of archaeological study. Not found, in most cases, are not found, by Joe Sixpacks and Sally Housewives. And then when these treasures are found, they don't fit the theory of evolution. And so they hide them. They say, wait a minute, this isn't politically correct. So they put it in a crate and hide it in the vault. They hide it in the basement to put it in a warehouse. Now, here are some examples. Now, listen, if we've got here, in this case, 44 examples, there are hundreds more that are being hidden. And the guy's name is Jonathan Gray, and the book is called Dead Men's Secrets. It's put out by Teach Services. That's the publisher, Teach, T-E-A-C-H, Services. They've got a webpage. It's www.teachservices.com. It's easy enough, Teach Services. Now, that Teach Services is all one word, but the first letters, that is T-E-A-C-H-S, is in caps, and then the E-R-V-I-C-E-S is in lowercase. So it's www.teachservices.com. And if you can't find a copy of it there, or you're having some kind of a problem, don't forget, you can always get these underground books, or these strange, odd books, from bravenewbookstore.com. That's bravenewbookstore.com in Austin, Texas. Brave New Bookstore has a phone number, too, if you want to jot it down. It's 512-480-2503. Once more, that's area code 512-480-2503. That's Brave New Bookstore. They will help you reveal the truth of the matter. All right, now the following examples are but representatives, so wait for some surprises. In Colombia, 2,000 years ago, in Ezion Geber in Israel, 3,000 years ago, in northeast Siberia, 3,000 years ago, in Tiahunco, Bolivia, Spain, 3,000 years ago, we have found smelting of metals and blast furnaces. That's important. These blast furnaces are the modalities by which we introduce oxygen into the steel-making process. Now, that wasn't discovered until after the Civil War. Blast furnaces. Steel. In Madzamor, Armenia, 2500 BC, a steel mill with 200 furnaces, about the oldest factory known. The workers wore gloves and covered their mouths with protective filters, just as they do today. In various places, steel objects have been found. Now, this is important because steel is something different than iron. Now, iron is made without the introduction of oxygen into the steel-making process, but steel is made through the process of metallurgy. Metallurgy is where you take steel and you put other things into it. For instance, you might put tungsten into the iron in order to make steel. You might put nickel into it in order to make stainless steel, and so on. Now, there's a place here in the Bible that gives us this story. Listen to this. This is in Genesis 4, verse 22. It says, "And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah." That's Naamah. These people were artificers in brass and iron in Genesis chapter 4. And I pointed this out to you the other day, that we were still casting cannon and sand, for crying out loud, in Columbus's time. We didn't have any metallurgy in 1500. We had metals. We didn't have metallurgy. That's the combining of metals to make something else, like brass, which is something that you mix metals to make brass. You don't dig brass out of the ground. Same thing is true with tin. You mix tin with other things, and then you make metallurgy out of tin, copper, iron. And when you mix these metals together, you get other components. That's what metallurgy is all about. When you go to make aluminum, that's a process that's only been discovered in the last 100 years, and yet we have aluminum artifacts coming out of tombs and pyramids all over the world. How in the hell did these people make aluminum without electricity? We have to have electricity to make aluminum. All right, now there's the clue that comes from the Bible. Now, in various places, such as Cube, Austria, pre-flood, an ingot in India, 4th century BC, nails in Britain, pre-flood, tweezers in Armenia, 2500 BC, reinforced concrete in the United States, shields in Ecuador, a wheel rim in England, 100 BC. That's steel. Now there's 7 instances of steel artifacts being found. Boys and girls, it's one thing to find iron and then say this is the Iron Age. It's another thing to find bronze and say, well, this is the Bronze Age. But when you find steel, boys and girls, that's advanced metallurgy. That's something that we haven't seen in modern times until the last 200 years. Now let's take a look at bronze. Bronze has been found in Samaria, Egypt, Central America, South America, and in Thailand. Here's the importance of this. Notice that bronze is found all over the world. It isn't that we found some civilization with bronze in Samaria. But if we find bronze in Samaria, why do we find it in Egypt, Central America, South America, and in Thailand all at the same time? Well, it indicates then that these people were communicating with each other. When you find a pyramid in Mexico, which is an exact copy or replica of a pyramid that you find in Egypt, do you conclude that, gee, look at these Aztecs and these Incas and these Mayas. They were building pyramids that looked just like the Egyptian pyramids, but they never had any contact with one another. They just happened to build the same design and architecture independently of one another. Oh, I don't think so. I think that the skyscrapers you see in Hong Kong are copies of skyscrapers that those people over there in the Orient saw us building here in New York and Chicago. You know, prior to 1900, there were not very many buildings that were very tall. I know in San Francisco, the Call building in 1906, which was destroyed in 1906 in the 1906 earthquake, was about 20 stories. Now, that's in 1900, a 20-story building. That's a big skyscraper in 1900. Little by little over time, we've built buildings. By 1935, we had a 100-story building called the Empire State Building. Other buildings, 100 stories tall, have been built in Chicago and in other cities in the world, which indicates that there is a communication between the Chinese and the English and the Americans and the Canadians and the Brazilians, and they have copied skyscraper building technology over the past 100 years. There's a worldwide civilization extant over planet Earth today, and there was a worldwide civilization extant over the world in the past. That's what the artifacts tell us. That's not what evolution tells us. It's not what archaeology, it's not what politics are reporting to us. It's not what we read in our history or in our archaeology or in our paleontology books in colleges and high school. But the evidence is very plain. Bronze is a hard alloy made of copper with the addition of 1/10 part tin. Now, it should have taken ages to discover that the addition of 1/10 part of tin to copper creates a better metal. But copper artifacts in our museums are few. Bronze seems to have appeared suddenly and spread far and wide in great profusion, everywhere, including the Americas. This alloy appears quite suddenly in China and among the Canaanites. The hardening of bronze to the strength of high-grade steel, harder than we can produce today. We still do not understand this technique of hardening bronze as hard as steel. Now, boys and girls, come on, let's wake up and get real. Today, we take a look at our skyscrapers, and they're made out of steel, which is hard, which is strong. We're pretty accomplished people today. You know, we have airplanes. We can manufacture aluminum. We have electricity. We can build airplanes. We can build spacecraft. We're technologically advanced. We're way ahead of the savages on New Guinea that are still sticking bones through their nose cartilage. But at the same time that we have Stone Age societies here on planet Earth, we also have Space Age societies, don't we?